Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited. So many people were able to join us tonight. We are, as I just said, recording this. For those of you who don't know me already, my name is Dave Kortkowski. I'm the Associate Dean of Students here at Williston, as if somewhere else. And I'm excited to be joined on the panel tonight by Jen Fulcher, our director of the middle school, and Bob Hill, our head of school. And we will kick off the night in style and hear a few words from Mr. Hill.
Thank you, David. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, day student families and parents and everybody. This was a great idea to do this, and we've all along, we were just kibitzing here a little bit before this started about how many Zoom forums we've had since last April, and there have been quite a few. I've sort of lost track of which is which, but certainly as we are getting closer to the opening of school and having students back on campus, it made a lot of sense to do this. And like all good ideas at Williston, this was not mine. So thank you for all of those who arranged this. I also have to say that there are three of us on this panel right now. This isn't the law of diminishing returns. It's not the last three standing. We have had a very busy summer for the senior admin team. We are representing them. All 14 of us have been hard at work, really pretty much nonstop since last April or May, working towards the reopening of school. And I don't want to just have the three of us get all the applause tonight, because there have been a lot of people hard at work, including the faculty, who, as you will see shortly, not only are going to be asked to teach very differently than they have, including last year, differently from last spring, but they're also teaching in unfamiliar spaces. And I can say a little bit more about that as well. You will certainly see that in a couple of weeks' time. So the faculty has been knocking themselves out all along this summer as well, as senior admin. So echoing David's thank you to the parents for being here, for the great questions that have been asked. And it occurs to me, I think we probably inundated folks with information overload. We have the frequently asked questions page up and running. We had the big plan that we rolled out. So there's a lot of information out there, but there's nothing better, I think, than as best we can being face-to-face to answer as many of the great questions as we can. So I hope this achieves that goal. And just as with the faculty, we certainly have noticed that as we get closer to the opening of school, the questions start to gain a little bit of urgency, and so we're happy to try to answer those questions now. There's some things that just haven't changed. I'm looking at my notes I compiled, and I went back and dug through some of my earlier comments, and it seems to me that we had some things right very early on. We knew that this pandemic was going to require a lot of patience on all of our parts, a lot of resilience, and a lot of optimism. And I hope all three of those words resonate. I think it's also requiring a lot of adaptability. Right up until today, things keep changing. And you all have seen the news. I mean, you've noticed which colleges have changed plans late in the game. Just today, I heard that North Carolina State sent their students home earlier in the week. I think UNC lasted for all of 2 days, and that's something like 20,000 students that they brought back. And so you might think, well, why is that working that way for them? And yet, we're in person in 2 weeks' time. Our whole goal all along has been to bring everyone back together as a community. And we have worked really diligently on that with the plan that you've seen and the protocols and the changes. We know it's going to be different when everyone gets here, and we have to behave in different modes from what we're used to. We're not going to be hugging. We're not going to have clusters of kids and people all tightly packed together. We're going to have directions on entering and exiting buildings, entering and exiting classrooms. Again, to reiterate some of the things that haven't changed, we're going to be masked and distanced all the time. If there are two things that haven't changed in the expert advice all along, it's wear your mask and keep a distance. So we're going to be really, we're really going to be firm in that. And we know that while things are changing, the thing that hasn't changed is us coming back together as a community. And so all along, that's what we have privileged. That was our priority, coming back together as a community, students and teachers. And so with that in mind, sort of my mnemonic device for everything has been, that's the priority, getting back together safely as a community with the safety of all students and families and teachers and staff in mind. And that's no easy task, and we know that. And so we know also that that's going to require us to follow a set of rules and expectations that are unfamiliar, that we haven't done as a school before. I think everybody I'm speaking to now has been doing this as families. We've been pretty safe as families, and we've been very thoughtful about the activities we engage in and don't engage in. And so to that extent, it won't be any different. I'm buoyed by the fact that our immediate group of peer schools are really doing what we're doing. It's some version of what we're doing. In some cases, there have been some alterations, as I say, but by and large, the headmasters that I talk to, heads of school that I talk to every Monday, from Deerfield Academy just north of us to Millbrook School in a different state, we're sharing, and we know that we've evolved best practices, and we're all really doing very similar things. And as I say, we've been hard at this plan since last May. One of the things I have to note is that the news cycle has been essentially relentlessly negative on the subject of schools and reopening. I just referenced the college side, but there have been plenty of stories like the hallway of the public school in outside of Atlanta. So we've seen plenty of images of how it's done wrong. And I want to change that narrative and say that Williston's going to do it right, and we'll have pictures and hopefully anecdotes about how to do it right. One of the important things to know is I check every day the state of Massachusetts dashboard, and I believe I'm right in saying that I saw East Hampton and our surrounding area is down to a positivity rate of maybe 1.4%, maybe it's 1.7, but it's a very low number compared to the stories that we're seeing in the news where it's 10%. 20%, 30% positivity rates. Those are constant, those are dramatically different scenarios with which to try to open a school. So that being said, so we're going to privilege in-person education as a starting point. And so all the things we're going to talk about tonight are how do we test drive this new school bus that we're starting up here in a few weeks? How do we make it work? And what's our best chance of keeping it going, keeping the wheels turning the whole time to get us through the calendar that we've proposed up into November. As I say, safety and health has been a priority the whole way along. And one of the things that Williston has that some of these other schools and colleges have really struggled with has been our very stringent testing protocol. So I've already been swabbed twice. All of our students will be swabbed with the molecular test, the PCR test. All students and adults will have given us 2 negative results on that before starting school. That's a higher standard than the governor is asking for in the state. So we have that. We have capacity to test right on campus with the viral test. That's been a big part of our plan. It's also a big part, I think, of our optimism. That said, we're continually evaluating the external factors, the outside metrics, and we're listening to our medical experts, we're listening to the science and the doctors and everybody. And so we're making adjustments, and we'll continue to make adjustments as we go along with that. So I think by way of introduction, I've probably said too much here so we can get to the questions. But just to repeat, I think that if we all are in this together as a community, and within that word community is unity, that if we're in this together in a unified front, to pay attention to the things that we have spent a lot of time arguing and debating and collecting evidence and data that suggests it will give Williston as a community the best chance to be successful. If we do that, I think we're going to be in great shape. So thank you. I know there are questions coming. I'll be turning over to David Korakowski, and I'll be chiming in with responses and adding on as we go through the evening. So thank you again, and back to you, David.
Well, great. Thanks, Bob. I think that was really well said introduction. So over the course of the night, there's going to be a lot of information. We're going to try to address all of the various questions we received in advance. We received 60, 70 questions. I'm really excited myself to be able to have this webinar just with the day families and some of the faculty members who are here, obviously. But the day families are a special category for us, and it's going to be a really important constituency that we make sure we are communicating well with. The part of this entire evening is about the more information, the better. I think we're all going to be well served by making sure that we all know exactly what's going on, and the more certainty we have, both in the plans and the process, but also the execution, I think the better we're all going to be served as a school community. And on that point, know that all of our decisions that we're making are grounded on the premise that we want Williston to be a safe, productive, in-person experience this year. More than anything else, we want it to be safe. We want it to be in person, and we have to do that together as a group. So we've already received many questions, as I said, and what I tried to do is group them together into manageable, larger, general topics, and we'll hit those as we go. If you have questions as you go, I just see the first one came in, use the chat function in there. Part of the great thing about the chat function is we'll be able to save it at the end. And for those questions we don't get to, we'll be able to reply directly to you. The first question of the night, one of the main things we saw was that given that there's no middle school or ninth grade orientation trip this year, and that there's different rules and expectations for access to campus, what's Williston going to do to create connections for new and returning day students? What are we going to do to help build community? So I think it's a perfect question to start with. A strong community is really at the heart of the Williston experience, and we're continuing to work hard, as we always do, to put programming together to make this the best year possible, while recognizing that there's certainly going to be necessary limitations as we deal with the pandemic. There's going to be more information coming very soon from class deans and the dean's office and the middle school about orientation plans on Monday the 31st. Excuse me. And a part of that will be some in-person work. We're going to invite the new day students to campus to get a tour, find out where their classes are. They may not be familiar with where many of the buildings are. They'll hopefully be able to meet up with their mentors, their advisors, things like that on that Monday, August 31st. And there'll be a number of other things that go on that day virtually. Probably the hallmark of what we're going to be doing this year in terms of building community will be grounded in our advisory program. It's one of the central ways that we connect groups of students and keep different groups of students and different faculty members really connected over the course of the year. Each of our assemblies will be done with advisories. So for instance, whether we're having an assembly or an advisory, my group of advisory or my group of advisees will get together in my office or in a classroom somewhere. We'll be masked, we'll be distanced, but we'll be able to share in the experience of that event as a small group. We'll project up whoever's speaking and be able to have some good conversations along with what's being presented. So there's going to be all school assemblies. There's going to be smaller advisories like there normally would be. We have incredible guest speakers set up already for the year. So as we say, all of the stuff, community, life, activity, our weekend activities, all of that remains central. We're going to be doing all of those things that we used to do. We're going to have all the different clubs that we used to have and keep everyone involved. I know Aaron Davies working on our annual club fair that we would have each year on the quad. It'll have to be a little different this year as we imagine it, but we want you to be engaged in community service. We want you to be engaged in the Willistonian or any of the other 50 different activities and clubs that we have on campus. And in the end, we know it's going to be different. Different's not always bad. We just need to embrace embrace those differences and make sure that Williston remains the community that it has always been. I've been here for 20 years, 21 years. And, one thing I know is that we've got great faculty here and great kids to work with. And as I look at those sort of pillars, great faculty, great kids, as the pillars to start the year, I think we're going to do really well in terms of building community. So I'm going to switch it over to Jen. Jen's going to hit on the question of, can you talk more about the rules around dropping off and picking up for day students, and more generally, where day students can hang out and study on campus when they're not in classes or engaged in the afternoon program?
Terrific. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. And I'm super happy to be here. I feel like we're kind of together already. And I know most of you, so a big hello. This night is great. I want to say thank you for the great questions. I got a chance to read all of them. Dave will throw some of them to me, but they were so thoughtful. And this is so important so that we can figure out together, because we're only going to be able to do this together, right? We're all parenting the kids. We're a community, and we're only going to be able to do this together. And the more we talk, the more we communicate, the more we have just a terrific chance to have a safe and really exciting opening of school. I can't wait to have people back in the building. I can't wait to see my soccer team. I can't wait to give high fives from 6 feet away. That's going to be a Gen Filter challenge, but I'm gonna go up for it. And I get it. I also have a son who'll be starting high school this year, so I understand as parents that there's a lot of excitement and a lot of questions, and the feeling that, okay, is all this going to go well? And I understand it. And I also understand that there's going to be some sacrifices that we're all going to have to make. And what I do know is it's all going to be worth it. To be together, for me to be able to say that I'm with my kids, and for my son to have an in-person education with the very, very best teachers that I know, all of this will be worth it. So I wanted to start with that. I'm really excited about it. Drop off and pick up. I love it. This is a great one. Thanks, Dave. Really important question, because you're thinking, where do I go? What do I do? So we recognize that for families and for working families, flexibility is really key. It's really key. Day students can be dropped off before classes. That is not a problem. But to de-densify the dining hall, at least for the start of the year, we can't allow day students to go into the dining hall to hang out or to eat. This is going to allow us to follow and exceed Massachusetts guidelines, and that's very, very important to us. But in the morning, they can go to the Stubop. Let's face it, an EBC is worth the trip to the Stubop, okay? So that alone is going to get you in the Stubop. You can go to a general area of Reed. The library will be open at 8 o'clock. And also, we've significantly increased our outdoors areas. You're going to see new tents. You're going to see new picnic tables. You're going to see new Adirondack chairs. There's lots of places that you can sit distance to just hang out with a friend or to study outside. And we're going to have some beautiful fall weather. I have been guaranteed by Bob Hill that every day is going to be sunny until Thanksgiving. So we're great. But there's going to be a lot of new areas for kids to be able to be distance, be safe, and yet be together. In terms of the middle school, we will open as usual at 7:30, but I will encourage kids to stay outside, enjoy the outside. Go get a blueberry muffin and ask for it to be grilled, because that's way better. And then come and join us, because when they come into the middle school, I am going to ask that you go right to the classroom of your first period, so that we can make sure that we're spread out throughout the building. So if you want to be moving around and enjoying it, that's outside. Go to Reed, get a muffin, come in, and then you can join us in the middle school. During freeze periods, upper school day students, again, Reed, library, gym, outside areas. I would encourage you on nice days to be outside as much as possible. There'll be tables to work and chairs to read and time to be together in a distance and to be safe. But all those areas will be open to upper school kids during their free periods. Some of you asked about access to the Writing Center and other help centers. There's not a problem there. You can schedule appointments for in-person during the day and also virtual appointments. If that is a preference and you're already home, you can also get virtual help as well. Great questions came in about pickup after athletics. We're going to stagger athletics this year to, again, de-densify the gym and create a flow of students that's safe for everyone. We will have practices on days that are done at 2:30 from 3 to 4:30 or 4:30 to 6. So, and that will rotate. So once your son or daughter decides or knows what program that they're in, the coach will communicate what days you're done at 4:30 and what days you're done at 6. And that will be a schedule, will be communicated. Ideally, day students are picked up right after their last commitment. If they do need to stay for a school commitment, they can schedule with the dean's office a time to eat dinner. It's only if you have a school commitment. Most day students will not be eating dinner, but if you had a school commitment, you can go to the dean's office and get a time that you can eat dinner, but we need to schedule that. I will say this, it's for 7 through 12 day students, athletics is optional, so that we could give families the chance to make the best choice for them, for their kids, for their schedule. But if you are not able to be picked up right after your last academic commitment, 2:30 or 3, depending on the day, then you should sign up for an after-school program. Because if you're not signed up for an after-school program, you should be picked up right after school, if that makes sense to everybody. That's a lot of information, but do know that we consider our day student population such an important part of our community. We want you to feel at home. This is your second home. That's how we feel about you. That's how you feel about us. So we'll have plenty of inside and outside areas to be safe and to be together and to study, to get extra help, and to enjoy each other.
Great. Yeah, there were also a couple of other questions I saw pop in about the athletic center, and whether upper school buildings will be open earlier. Yes, we're going to make sure that there are areas for you to be able to go. It's quite similar to what it's been like for day students in the past, except for the dining hall, right? The library will open at 8 o'clock. The Read Center will be open earlier. And you can certainly go and get into some of your classrooms starting at 7:30 as well. The questions about the athletic center, again, I mean, if you're involved in athletics, feel free, obviously, to use that. I don't remember if Jen just said it because I was answering a few chats, but the locker rooms in the athletic center are for day student use only this year. So that's a big piece we're doing. We're going to have all the boarding students changing in their rooms, getting themselves organized, get their masks on, and then head down to wherever they're going. And then the day students will have the ability to use the locker rooms, get cleaned up or ready to go, and then into their activity. So those were a couple of good ones. The individual practice times and things like that will be covered. Each of your coaches will be in touch with you about the schedule because it'll be staggered in many different ways, and every sport will be a little bit different. There is also one other question about the library. The library is going to be open all day, right? Kind of like normal. There is a break there at dinner for the librarians to get some food, but it'll be open into the evening. And if you have specific things to do, then obviously you'll be able to do those as you normally have been. But let me hit some of these other questions that we had earlier because I'm getting distracted by the chat.
Yep. I saw one great question. May I answer it, Coach Ted? One great question is, what do you do if your practice is at 4:30, right? So that's a great question. In the middle school, you will stay with us in after-school program. We will have distance set up for everyone to be able to study, do their homework, get extra help. You will stay with us and then leave to go to practice. If you're in the upper school, that's a time that you could use the library to get some work done. And you could use Read to get some work done, or some outside areas that will be set up to be able to start your homework. So there will be places for kids to be able to be during that time. That's a really great question. In the middle school, you must stay in the middle school. There's no, do I say there's no freedom? I'm not going to say there's no freedom. You get to hang out with Miss Fulcher all day, right? But you're going to hang out with us, and then you'll go to practice at 4:30. We'll let you out at 4 to go change and get ready for practice.
Perfect. That's a great one. So will there be any obligations on weekends for day students, and can day students attend activities that are happening on campus on the weekends? So two-part question, two-part answer. We absolutely want all of our students to be engaged in what's going on here. We have great and exciting weekend activities program, but we expect some of that to be at least restricted by the city and state regulations limiting large gatherings. The first 3 weeks are certainly going to be an adjustment, and we're going to have to rely on the creativity of our students, the creativity of the adults to keep everyone really engaged. You have no obligation as a day student to come to weekend activities other than upper school classes on Saturdays when we have those, and athletic contests if we have those on the weekends. But for all of the other stuff, day students are always encouraged and welcomed, but never required to be at those events. And if we do have bigger group gatherings, if we're allowed to do it, day students will certainly be invited along the way. So for Jen, are day students taking classes with boarding students? I see on the schedule some of my child's classes are in the dance studio and the gym. Those seem like strange locations.
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, one of the first activities is going to be virtual karaoke with Miss Fulcher and Miss Marsland. She's on this call, so you're with me. So everyone's welcome to that. If you can survive it, it'll be great. Great question about boarders and day students. Yes, you're in classes together. Absolutely. We're a one community. So in terms of 9 through 12, obviously 7 and 8 is day only. You're in classes together. And we've spent the whole summer evaluating all of our classrooms and setting them up for distancing. The number of students allowed in any of our rooms have been closely looked at. And to help with this, we're using bigger spaces on campus, like the dance studio, like the Dodge room, like the gym. We've also added additional passing time to allow for cleaning between classes and made adjustments to the schedule to allow for fewer transitions during the day. We've also closely examined traffic patterns to keep students moving smoothly without congregating in groups close together, how you come in buildings and out of buildings. There's been so much work this summer, from tearing down walls to changing technology, to adding a lot of technology, to new classroom furniture, and new furniture inside and outside. I want to get a special shout out to Physical Plant, who has been working tirelessly this summer. Every time that I'm in my office, there's something going on all across campus. They've been amazing to keep what we love, the beauty and the campus that we all love, and create incredibly safe spaces for our students and our faculty. So we feel really good about the physical spaces that we'll be having classrooms in.
Great. We had a number of questions that are coming through right now about face masks, including whether there will be face mask breaks during the day, whether they need to be worn outside when socially distanced, during lunch, during athletics, and so on. It's not an easy, or it's an easy answer, but it's not an easy discussion, I think, to have. And it's going to be one that we're going to have to really make sure the students understand and everyone understands. But our guide here is simple and safe, right? All students, all faculty, all staff are expected to have their masks on all the time, unless they're sitting down at a table and eating, or if they're a boarder and they're actually in their room, or I suppose in the shower, obviously. But if a boarding student is walking down the corridor or, in the common room, mask on. If we're just like if we're in a restaurant here, if we get up from the dining commons and are going somewhere else, walking through, mask is on. We have plexiglass shields and things up in the dining commons, so it's a safer atmosphere, but we're also de-densifying, obviously, in the dining commons as well. And we realize it's a long time to wear masks. I get it. But it's the sort of anchor on which we are going to be able to feel like we can operate the school. And this is a really, really important rule for us, given how crucial it's proven to be able to have masks and have distancing to mitigate the spread of the disease. And students will hear constantly about how important we believe it is, and we will obviously all be mirroring that activity. In terms of sports, I know there's been a lot of questions about mask wearing during sports. Every sport's a little bit different, is I guess the way I'll start with that. We're going to be following Massachusetts phased guidelines, and each coach will be in touch with all of their athletes about what the expectations will be. Certainly as you are walking to practice, as you are getting yourselves organized, masks are on. But if you're with me and you're going to jump in the water, no, we're not going to wear masks while we're swimming. But we have other regulations and rules that we're going to have to follow. So we have all of that sort of being coordinated by Mark Conroy and the athletic department, along with Ansel Garvey, Melissa Brousseau, who are really working hard to make the athletic experience phased in and safe. While I'm on the topic of masks, there's something that we've been spending quite a bit of time over the last few days and pay attention to announcements as they come, but there's been a lot of talk about the differences between masks and gaiters, the pull-up things or bandanas. And we've been reading a lot about it and learning about it. So we're feeling like we're going to move towards masks and not gaiters, but I don't know that a final decision has been made. I believe that is the case. But, you know, there's going to be certainly something coming out, I would imagine, about that soon.
David, can I jump in and just
Absolutely.
add just a quick tidbit about the masks? I mean, pick your favorite person and personality on TV, Dr. Birx or Dr. Fauci or Dr. Gupta, and if you hear them as I do over and over, you know, masks are so critical to every time they give a talk. It's all about, you know, just please keep a mask on. And I don't know if we're going to be getting to this a little bit later, but mask wearing will also impact sort of tracing and who has to get tracked if somebody were to test positive. So I think there'll be some questions about that later on. David will have a lot of answers about that. But that's, you know, that's the critical thing. I always reference Big E's where I go and do my local shopping, and they have that little sign that says, "We wear a mask to protect you, and so please wear a mask to protect us." And it's you know, I can't think of many times where one's clear self-interest is also so tightly aligned to a collective interest. This is certainly one of those times, but that's why you're hearing so much about masks.
Yeah, it's a great point, Bob. And I suppose building off of that, there's been a lot of questions about testing and screening and how often will we be testing students after these initial 2 tests and all of that. So let me hit a few of those. The first part of it will be that every day, all of the students, all of the faculty, all of the staff will get an email, and I think it'll be also a text message early in the morning asking to do a self-attestation, right? It'll be basically an email that goes out with asking you to answer 5 questions. It'll be click buttons, yes or no questions. Are you feeling well? Do you have a temperature? Those sorts of things. Do I feel sick? And if any of those answers are yes, it will send an email or an alert to our nurses at Health and Wellness. And if you are answering yes to any of those, our request of you is to stay where you are. So as a day family, if you have a son or daughter who's not feeling particularly well or is feeling symptomatic or those things, stay home. Our nurses will be in touch and we'll coordinate with your primary care and do the things that we have to do. If you're just not feeling good, stay home. Maybe it's just a 1-day sniffle. That's okay. You can get into your classes online. There's no worries about doing that. You can certainly, you know, Zoom in, and all the teachers are prepared to work, you know, sort of nimbly, right, to make sure that we're involving everyone that we can. So, you know, again, if you feel like you want to keep your student home, go ahead. They're not going to be penalized for staying home because they're not feeling well. In terms of testing itself, you know, Williston's in an incredible position with testing. We're incredibly lucky that we've been able to have or secure an antigen test system on campus where we can do rapid testing, that 5 to 15 minute antigen test. And then we've also secured, obviously, as you've all seen many emails come out, we've secured PCR testing through the Broad Institute at MIT so that we can have every student who's coming onto campus tested twice before they're in person in class. Again, this is exceeding Massachusetts regulations, but we think a really important step to making sure that when we start in class on day 1, the Williston bubble is secure and contained as much as possible. And then we feel like we can move forward from a really strong position. In terms of ongoing testing, we're still refining all of those protocols. And we want to see, obviously, how these first couple tests go this week. But the general plan is to test a portion of the campus each week, right? So that over the course of a 2-week or so period, we should be able to test everyone again, right? And kind of redo that process as we go. So if on Monday we do a quarter of the population, and on Thursday we do another quarter, and then Monday we do a quarter, something along those lines. But we're still trying to work with our medical experts and figure out what the best process is, rather than putting everyone simply through a test every 2 days, which we think is a little bit excessive. But we're working on that right now, and it's an ongoing process. Much of what we're going to be talking about is really evolving. All of the testing, everything is evolving. You know, we see that the NBA is now using a saliva test which we didn't even think was available. So there's a whole lot coming about that. And obviously there's a number of questions about the protocols if someone on campus tests positive. And I'm working with Ann Halleck and a number of others. There will be a very detailed email coming out this weekend of all of the different steps that'll be taken if there's a positive test, and how all of that information will be shared with sort of individually among the students and then collectively among the parents and other stakeholders in the community. So that leads naturally to how we're going to figure out who needs to be tested in one of those cases. Excuse me. And we're going to be using a new, as I'm sure many of you have heard, contact tracing app this year. The app is not all that creatively named Automatic Contact Tracing, and it's put out by PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. It uses Bluetooth and Wi-Fi signals, and it tracks proximity of phones. It does not track location. And I think that's the biggest question I've gotten about this is, are you going to be able to tell that I'm, in the gym or in my dorm or at Nini's? No, right? The purpose of this app is if someone tests positive, we can go back over the last 2 weeks of data and run a report. And that report will tell us who was in close contact with that student. Close contact, as defined by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the CDC, is inside of 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, right? So if you meet that criteria, you were inside of 6 feet for more than 15 minutes with a student who tested positive, right? Then you're going to be all of a sudden into a protocol, right? And that's an important thing for us to do. The contact tracing app data is only run by Health and Wellness. I'm not going to be able to see it sort of as a dean's office tool. And it only works in East Hampton, right? Or in the inside of our extended campus boundaries, right? So it'll be able to tell your proximity when you're at Dunkin' Donuts, but not when you're at home, right? And things like that. So it's just inside of our smaller little Williston bubble. And we're primarily focusing, as we said, on close contacts. So I just wanted to at least talk a little bit about the contact tracing app itself.
David, can I just jump in and add one thing about that app? It was actually kind of a stroke of good fortune for the school because we've glommed on to a major company's app. So they did all the research for the app. They answered all the questions about data security. They did all of that. And we're one of only a handful of schools that have sort of glommed onto this and gotten their permission and approval, and it's gone through attorneys and all that because we're dealing with minors to use this app. So it really does sort of solve a bunch of issues around data security, privacy, all the things that would be, naturally come to mind and are great questions to ask. So as much as Dave joked that he doesn't get to use it as a dean of students, he really doesn't. And the nurses following their own, HIPAA health protocols are the only ones who have access to it. And as Dave said, it essentially just shows when two phones are close to each other, and then measures the distance and then how long they've been together. So it's a very strong and important tool for the tracing and tracking that everyone says is the best way to contain any kind of an outbreak and avoid having to shut the school down or to lock ourselves down for a weekend or 2 weeks or whatever it is. So that's why we've adopted that.
Yeah, and I think two more really important points about the app itself. It runs in the background of your phone so that you don't have to update your location or anything like that. It's foolproof in that respect. As long as it's active in your phone, it will do what it's supposed to do. And the other part is that all of us, faculty members, staff members, we're all going to have it, right? So that all of the Williston community will be able to contact trace with each other. It certainly will not help or do you any good at home if you live in Northampton or something like that, because as family members, you won't be using it, but it will do us a really important service here on campus for the 500 plus students and faculty members, or 700 plus people when you include everyone else that's inside this Williston group. Okay. Oh, and the last piece about it is I know there are some students out there, primarily middle school students that I've heard from, but maybe upper school students too, who don't have a phone, right? What am I going to do? I don't have a phone. We're working on a solution for that. So stay tuned. We might have a good idea in mind that we're working with PWC on right now. So we should have a plan for that very, very soon.
I'd go as far as to say we do have a good plan. So exactly. The details I won't go, but you will be given something just Wi-Fi enabled that will allow you to use the tracing app because it's a really important part of our community. So terrific that we've been able to do that. So you don't have to purchase a smartphone for your son or daughter. Although if your son or daughter's on the call, they may be sad about my answer there, right? That they want the smartphone, but you're not getting one because we can take care of it.
Yep, that's a good point. And then the last piece about it will be, or there's a question about athletics and the phones and things like that. So I'm working with Mark and others about this. So I think the plan will be, if you're outside at a soccer practice, that we're going to have all the phones put over on the bleachers, right? Maybe 6 feet apart, maybe not, depending on what you guys are all doing, so that you don't have to have your phone on you while you're doing athletics, but so that we can figure out a reasonable process for how close contact people were over those 90 minutes. But the other piece is that all of those athletic activities will be relatively smaller groups to start with, so that the contact tracing will be a little easier in that respect anyways, because the athletes will be podded to a certain extent as we go through that. So with athletics and other things, there's been a lot of questions and conversation about the first 3 weeks and what do those first 3 weeks look like with a closed campus, and then what happens after those 3 weeks. And I wish I could tell you I knew exactly what was going to happen after 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. That would make life a lot easier. The honest answer is we don't really know. We will be continuously evaluating. The hope is that after those first couple of weeks, we feel like the campus and the surrounding community are in really good shape, that positivity rates stay low, that there aren't many infections or any infections on campus, and we can start to loosen things up along the way. But I can tell you, that I don't know the date that will happen, but I do know that as soon as we know, everyone will know in the community. And I know there's a lot of anxiety about that. And I have a few other things to say later about kind of what those protocols will look like. But I just want to say here that, everything that we're doing is continuously evolving with that. So I need a break. Let's see, Jen, can you talk a little bit about how meals, the dining hall, things like that will work for day students? Breakfast, dinner, all those sorts of different things about the dining hall.
Yes, that's great, Dave. Thank you. It is like my 5th Zoom, and I always get the eating questions. I'm not going to take that personally. I think if anybody knows me, they know that lunch is one of my favorite times during the day. But to be honest with this community, lunch will certainly be one of the most challenging times for us because it's the one time that we're taking our masks off. And we understand that, and we have looked at and had so many conversations about dining hall and eating for that reason. For the reason we've added a second location for food distribution with the food truck. And we've also gone from the standard 2 lunch times to 4 lunch times to spread people out as they're eating during the day. We've also added numerous new places to eat, both indoors and outdoors, with tents and tables and chairs, and the ability to take things to go so that you could go back to your dorm room. You could sit outside. You could sit in an Adirondack chair. There'll be picnic tables, and there will be also indoor locations. So there's more seating, staggered lunches. Kids will be told what lunch exactly they eat in. So it's not like 400 is going to pick one lunch. You'll be told. I know that to some kids that's like, oh, but trust me when I say we must take this part very seriously, as we do everything else. But we'll make sure that kids are staggered through those 4 lunch periods. Both the dining hall in the truck will be set up for kids with allergies. We'll have the same offerings in both locations, and then lots of cases for kids to spread out to eat safely. We understand the importance of a great lunch break with terrific food. We're all counting on that. I love that. You love that. And we're going to enjoy that together from in a safe way. And I also want to acknowledge that I understand and we understand the disappointment about breakfast and dinner. We're a community. We're a family. We're used to having dinner together a couple nights a week. We're used to hanging out together there. So it is something that we really, really understand. And I want you to know that we're going to continuously reevaluate this decision. We must start this way between local board in Massachusetts. This is the absolute way that our community needs to start. And trust us when we say that all of these decisions were made based on how we can keep our community safe. We love our kids and we'll make adjustments at any time during the year, one way or the other, to keep our community safe. But please know that this wasn't a decision that we took lightly. It's a decision that we feel we must do and have to do for the safety of our community. But we do understand that it's disappointing to kids, and we'll do all that we can to continue throughout the year and throughout the fall and into the winter to reevaluate at any time, any chances that we have to safely bring our community together.
Yeah, there's a quick question that came in about paying at the food truck and things like that. No. The food truck is going to be the exact same food as at the dining commons, right? It's just going to be in two different locations, and we try to just create a mobile way to do it. But it's going to be a fixed location out behind the Reed Center, so that we have two places serving food, so we can de-densify everywhere. There'll be seats in the Reed Center. There'll be tents outside and picnic tables and Adirondack chairs and all sorts of places to eat. You can go to your next class period and eat in the room. There's all sorts of different options that we have, but the idea of the food truck is, it's the same stuff. There'll be grab and go options. There'll be some hot meals. There'll be some cold meals. There'll be all sorts of things in both locations. Lots
of different choices. And if you're driving by campus, today went up a couple new tents. So yeah. You're going to see, things are happening every day. Right in front of the middle school is a new tent. There's one going up in front of the quad. So there's going to be a lot of different locations and a lot of different outdoor locations for you guys to eat, as well as inside. But on nice days, I encourage you, stay outside, breathe the air, enjoy that space, and we'll have plenty of places for kids to eat at their specified lunchtime.
Yep, and if it's pouring rain, we have plans for that too, in terms of there are tents that have, reasonable sort of coverage. But, we're always available to go to our next class period. There's room in the dining hall. There's room in the Reed Center. There's room all over the place. We can, certainly, we'll have a rainy day plan for all of that as well. So there's also been a number of questions coming in looking for clarification about, what does a closed campus mean, or what kind of things can I do outside of school beyond what is in the compact as a day student? Can I be engaged in outside athletics or things like that? So, I guess the easiest way to answer this is that as a community, we're only as strong as the weakest link, right? We've all seen the news about colleges and universities opening up and then closing quickly because of spikes in transmission rates. Almost always those spikes have been traced back to students not following the guidelines set forth by the school. And of course, we're only dealing with colleges primarily, right? And college students make silly decisions. High school students make silly decisions sometimes. So we're really looking to the parent communities of boarders and day students to, support what we're doing. I'm sure you're craving a really detailed do's and don'ts list right now, but the real answer is we're expecting day students and boarding students to behave the same way as we open school, to follow the protocols in the compact, not to engage in high-risk activities. And high-risk activities are many and varied, right? But ultimately, we want to keep the Williston bubble as intact and safe as possible. Many of you have family pods you've been operating in for months, and that's fine. Keep doing that. We expect you to be safe at home, and we will keep the boarders safe at home while at school, right? We're not asking you to totally change your lives because your day student is here, but we are asking, especially your day student, to change a few things about what they're doing when they're away from here. Bob mentioned it earlier that, we're partnering with you as we go through this. So we're asking all of you to use your best judgment to see what really fits and what doesn't. Trust your gut on a lot of these things. And if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel like it makes sense for the larger Williston community, then don't let your child do that. I think that's the easiest way to say it in a general way. We recognize many of your students or your children have been playing on teams over the course of the summer, or have been in part of different kinds of pods with friends from all over the different place. In the first 3 weeks, though, we're saying stick to the bubble, which means shared sacrifices. It means shared sacrifices for all of us. That's why we expanded a lot of on-campus activities. We've expanded our athletic offerings. There's going to be a whole lot of different opportunities for evaluation on the athletic field for people who are worried about that. But, again, as Bob said earlier, we have to privilege in-person education above anything else right now. If we want to be able to stay open, if we want it to be able to stay safe and healthy as a community, then, we need to make sure we're doing this together. And
David, there was a line I picked up. As I was watching one of the news shows coming out of Georgia, where things were just going, kind of crazy down there. And the governor is suing the mayor of the largest city who wants to have masks mandated. And, it's pretty chaotic. And they very quickly got up to 10, 20, 30% in some county, or close to 30% positivity rate. And I think it was the mayor who's been on TV a lot of Atlanta. And she said, close the bars so we can open the schools. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's folks know where these clusters are taking place, and it's not in the controlled spaces. So, at Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill, it was fraternity houses where it all went off the rails. So just to echo what David was saying, that we're relying on the day student parents to set the guidelines, to set the rules, to reinforce what we're going to be saying here at school about distancing and mask wearing. And again, it's that little voice that goes off in your head. It's the reasonable parent test. If your child says, geez, I want to get together with 10 friends, it's been a really long time, and we're going to hang out at their house, that doesn't sound like a great idea to me. In the first few weeks, we were really trying to get the habits formed and to see if this will all work. None of us has the crystal ball. We just have been working hard and want to give it the college try, and we know that we're all going to have to work in sync to make that happen.
Yeah, it's great. My last, I guess, couple of thoughts on this. There's been a few questions in here about siblings and what if, other children in my family are involved in some other kinds of outside activities. We're concentrating on you to be able to manage your household the best way you see fit, and for the Williston students to be engaged in Williston activities. There's been a few, just since it's our first day student only meeting, I've had a few other boarding student meetings, and there's a couple of guys on, or a couple of students on other teams, outside hockey teams, outside soccer teams, who I've spoken with, and they said, I have this tournament in September that I really can't miss, so I really want to do it. And I said, fine, I'm not going to tell you can't do what you want to do, but I am going to tell you that if you're going to prioritize that outside activity, then you have to start the school year online. Right, that once you leave and you're going to go off and do something like that, you're going to be online until you're ready to come back. And coming back means 2 negative PCR tests, right, over an extended period, or over a week period of time. And during that time, you can be online. We're happy to work with you. We want you to be here. We want you to be in person. That's the whole point of the school and of Williston. But we're going to support all of our learners, right? All of our teachers are ready to have sessions concurrently, both over Zoom and in the classroom. All of the classes will be recorded as they were last spring, and we're really looking forward to being able to support everybody in that situation. But we have to be able to have a line in the sand somewhere, and what we have to be able to say is that as a school, we're going to prioritize teaching and engaging all of us here in person, trying to make the best of that experience as we can. So there's been another question I've seen quite a few times of, What about people who are not abiding by social distancing or are intentionally turning off their phones, not using the app, doing all sorts of those kinds of things? And I guess I'll say, as with any other kind of things, we're going to handle every case individually. But if you're refusing to abide by the Williston Compact, we're going to have an immediate conversation with you as a student. We're going to have an immediate conversation with you guys as parents. And if you can't comply, ultimately, you'll wind up going online. It's not a one strike and you're out thing. We know students might mess up and make a mistake. But if it's intentional and it's repetitive, then we're going to have to, deal with those kinds of situations. We need to make sure that, there's a certain level of maturity and responsibility that is out there, and that we can make sure that we're expecting from all of our students along the way. So Jen, when are the computers being distributed? When are people able to install other software on them? And what will, I guess, sort of arrival days look like for that, in that respect?
Yes, those are great questions. So, and understood. So two things. One thing I wanted to go with what Dave was saying. I actually am becoming more optimistic with this call. I know it's a webinar, we're talking at you, but I'm looking at the questions that are coming out. They're so incredibly thoughtful, so incredibly caring, and all centered on how to keep our community safe. What about siblings? How do I do this? How do I keep us safer? Everything that I'm seeing on here makes me, I'm already optimistic because I love this place. I've lived here my whole adult life, but I feel great. And thank you for being on this call, and thanks for bringing out these questions that show that you are as invested as us in making this an incredibly safe return to school and a great experience for our kids. We want to provide the very best education on top of keeping them safe, and we feel like we have to do all of this to be able to do both of those things. So thank you for your questions. I feel great. In terms of the Surface, great question, but because it's so important, is that on your second test, when you come to campus, you'll get your test. Grab your welcome bag. In your welcome bag is some goodies, including a mask, a Williston mask, but also includes your Surface, and what you need will be in that bag. I will ask students grades 7 through 12, don't drop your kids off. Keep the car running, roll down the windows and read a book, but we're hoping it's very quick. They'll take their test, they'll grab their bag, and then we're asking them to immediately leave campus, as no one can be on campus without 2 negative tests. So again, test, grab your bag, have your Surface, and head off campus. We love you. We'll see you in a couple of days, but we need to make sure that's super important until we have the 2 negative tests, that we keep that moving. In terms of downloading a software, absolutely, there's, with few exceptions, there's some, it's not a problem. I would suggest Contactic Technology. Just give them the name of the software that you're interested in putting in your Surface, and they can guide you to let you know the how, or if there's going to be any issues with them as well. So the kids, they're brand new Surfaces. They're the newest model, just came out, so the kids will be excited to get brand new Surfaces this year. The battery life's a little longer, the screen's a little better, everything's an upgrade even from the ones that we only had used for 2 years. So you guys will get those on the day of your second test.
Great. The last couple of things I'm going to try to just check off quickly. I know it's 8 o'clock. We are committed to grading our number grades for the year. I've seen a few questions of are we going to be pass fail or things like that. So no, we've committed to having numerical grades this year. So there'll be, your teachers and stuff will be talking about all of those sorts of things along the way. And there's another question which has come up continuously about, is there a number of confirmed cases at Williston before, or where we would then make the decision to, that's it, flip the switch and go virtual? The answer to that is no, right? We don't have a specific number in mind. We're hoping it's extraordinarily low, but we're realistic in the fact that we're bringing lots of people onto this campus and someone may have a positive test. But we're going to continue to work with the City of East Hampton, the Board of Health Department, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and their health department, our medical staff, who are very well versed in all of this. We've got connections at Bay State and Cooley Dickinson. We have isolation areas on campus. We have quarantine areas on campus. We have testing protocols in place and contact tracing. So we feel like we're in as good a place as we could possibly ask for to start the year. And a lot of the decisions based on whether or not we continue in person will be sort of larger decisions of the city and state ultimately, right? And we're going to be following guidance from Governor Baker about where we are in terms of what can happen for different kinds of group activities and gatherings. So there's a whole lot of those things which will all come into play. But we certainly will not be able to, nor do we want to make those decisions completely on our own. We are part of the East Hampton community, and we love being part of the East Hampton community. And what we do as a school will have a significant impact on the town or the city of East Hampton. So I just have one or two other quick thoughts. And one of them is for day students, right? Everyone should have received many emails about signing up for your 2 PCR tests. We are offering those PCR tests on campus on Monday, the 25th and Friday, the 28th for any day student who wants them. They're free, right? There's actually a cost of $45 a piece for these hundreds or thousands, over 1,000 tests that we're picking up as a school. So please take advantage of that. If you want to get one done on your own, that's fine. But the system we're using will guarantee the results the next day through the Broad Institute at MIT. So it's a reliable way to get 2 PCR tests on time. If you're taking the SAT, some day students out there are taking the SAT, instead of the 25th and the 28th, take your tests on the 25th and the 27th so that you can have your test result back in time to be able to take the SAT in person. The SAT on Saturday, the 29th, you need 2 negative tests in hand to be able to do that. And I think that basically hits almost every one of the questions from the chat and the ones that came in ahead of time. And I know I've been firing away for a while. I want to leave it with Bob, but I also want to just say to everyone, thank you for your attention and for being here tonight. If there's any questions that come up, obviously email me or Jen or Bob, and I can set up a phone call or we can communicate by email, whatever works. We're more than happy to deal individually with folks. And, I just want to thank everyone for being here and really looking forward to an incredible school year. So Bob, you want to?
Thanks. Sure. Thanks, David. I think I would just echo everything that David said and Jen said about how much we appreciate the wonderful questions and dialogue that's taking place here tonight. As I think about this, we're a school that's roughly 60% boarding students, 40% day. That presents obviously a challenge when you're trying to create a bubble. And that's why tonight we're emphasizing over and over again our partnership with you as parents and how crucial that is to do the best we can to preserve the bubble and privilege the bubble, but also privilege the community that has kids living here, and we're their parents in loco parentis, and then working in partnership with you as parents of the day students. So yeah, that's a tall order, but we're up for it. We're game for it. I get asked from time to time, wouldn't it just be easier to do this or that? Again, going back to what I said earlier, so many of our peer schools are doing some version of what we're doing, but not all of them. And some are doing, variations on a theme. Some are saying boarding only. Some are saying we're just going to be day schools and we're not going to have any sports. We're not having anything. You're going to come to class. You might eat lunch. You might not. You go home. We think we can control the classroom environment pretty well. We think that a teacher won't hesitate to say to Johnny or Jill, put your mask up or maintain your distance. We think we can control that. We know we're going to start the year with a clean slate. Everybody will have been tested and will be negative. So these have been great questions that ask, how do I ensure that I'm sending my child back a week later, 2 weeks later, as safely as possible? And that's on, I'm being just totally honest, that's on the families. That's on you're listening to your conscience and your appetite for risk. and for your children who even don't go here, what their appetite or your appetite for their risk is. Really important and very personal conversations, which is also why people can choose to go remote. And we're not judging. And if it's more convenient for a family, or if families have other needs that would cause them to tilt in favor of remote, no judgment on our part at all. Let us know. Go remote. Come back when the time is right and all the tests have turned out that allow you to get back inside the bubble. But that's an option. And I just really want to make sure that I emphasize that, because David made the point that he has boarding students who've already called about that and will take advantage of staying away. You know, they have things they really want to do outside of the school, and we said that's fine. You know, go ahead and do those. I've said this earlier in the summer on various webinars, but overwhelmingly, our families and our students want to come back. And so that's why we're opening. We believe we can do it safely, and we're answering the call. If no one wanted to come, we wouldn't do it. Frankly, the easier thing for us to have done, and 14 of my dearest colleagues would have had nice long vacations as opposed to not one day off all summer, including Saturdays and Sundays, would be to say, we're just going to go remote. And then the school wouldn't have spent close to $2 million or more on the things that we're doing to make it as safe as possible. I quipped that I think one of my colleagues might own stock in plexiglass. There's a lot of plexiglass and cleaning supplies. We've purchased all the things that you can possibly purchase to give Williston the best chance of regrouping as a school and making it work. We have the testing equipment on site. We have the testing kits on site. We've trained people up. So we've really spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars to make this work. And our whole spirit is behind making it work for no reason other than carrying on the Williston mission. So that's our motive, is to carry on the Williston mission, to answer the call of the parents and the kids to say, let's come back, let's try this if it's safe. And at the low positivity rate that we see in our area, and the great work done by the governor and all the folks in Massachusetts who are charged with making those decisions, here we are 2 weeks away. And so thank you. Again, thank you for your resilience. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being flexible. And we can't wait to see you even with a mask on. As I said the other day, smile with your eyes, and we'll all be seeing each other soon. So thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Jen.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Bye,
night.
everybody. Can't wait to see you.